Have you ever felt like you're trying your hardest to learn English, but you still can't speak fluently like a native speaker? You've spent hours, weeks, even months just learning vocabulary. But when it comes to speaking, everything suddenly falls apart. You know a lot of words, but your sentences remain rigid, awkward, and unnatural. I understand that feeling, because I was once like you. Let me tell you a little story. A few years ago, I confidently thought I knew a lot of English vocabulary. I diligently learned new words every day, filling pages with advanced vocabulary and memorizing their meanings. I believed that knowing many words would make me speak English fluently. But then one day, I was invited to attend an international gathering. The participants came from all over the world, and English was the common language for communication. I was very excited, thinking that this would be the perfect opportunity to show off what I had learned. But things didn't go as I imagined. When everyone spoke naturally, I felt like I was being left behind. I could hear the words they were saying, but I couldn't grasp the whole conversation. When I wanted to respond, it took me several seconds to search my memory and try to find the right words. But by the time I found them, I felt lost. I started asking myself, why do I know so many words but still can't speak English naturally? That's when I realized an important truth. Knowing a lot of vocabulary doesn't necessarily help you speak English fluently. What's more important is knowing how to use them naturally and flexibly. And to do that, you don't just need to learn vocabulary, you need to understand how it's used in real-life contexts and learn how to respond naturally and smoothly. Today, I will share with you 15 essential words that, if you master them, you will see your English change completely. But it's not just about knowing the meaning of each word. I will show you how to use them in real-life situations, how to distinguish between subtle differences in meaning, and how to avoid common mistakes. You will see how I apply these words in stories and specific situations, and you will practice them right here in this video. And you will see that learning English doesn't have to be a dry and boring journey. Are you ready? Let's explore together. Have you ever sat in front of a native speaker and realized that you couldn't accurately express what you wanted to say? That feeling is frustrating, isn't it? You try to find the right words in your mind, but all you have are isolated words. Without connection, without nuance, you know the meanings of the words. But when it comes time to use them, they get mixed up, failing to form natural sentences. I've been in that situation so many times. I remember attending an international conference once. Everyone was enthusiastically discussing an interesting topic: how to improve English speaking skills. I sat there, listening and trying to understand everything people were saying. I could clearly hear each word they spoke, but when I tried to piece them together into sentences, I felt confused. When they eventually turned to ask for my opinion, I was completely lost. I understood the question, I knew what I needed to say, but I didn't know how to say it naturally. I spoke, but my words sounded stiff and disconnected. After that conference, I sat alone and asked myself, I've been studying English so hard, so why can't I speak as naturally as a native speaker? That's when I realized something important. Knowing a lot of vocabulary isn't everything. The key is to know how to use them naturally and flexibly in every situation. But how do you do that? I started to study carefully how native speakers use vocabulary in everyday conversations. I listened to every tone, every emphasis, every way they used words in context. And then I discovered something. There are certain words that native speakers use repeatedly in many different situations. These words don't just carry specific meanings. They also convey emotions, nuances, and even the speaker's attitude. For example, the word fiasco. It's not just a word to describe a failure. It implies a severe, chaotic failure, something that was expected to be great but ended up as a disaster. When someone says the party was a fiasco, you don't just understand that the party failed. You feel the disappointment, the messiness, the unfulfilled expectations. Or take the word charisma. It's not just a term for ordinary attractiveness. Charisma carries the idea of a special charm, a certain energy that makes others pay attention, feel drawn in. Great leaders are often described as having charisma. And those are just 2 of the 15 essential words I want to share with you today. But I won't just talk about the meanings of each word. I will show you how to use them in real-life contexts, how to distinguish between different shades of meaning, and how to use them naturally in daily conversations. You won't just learn vocabulary. You'll learn how to make these words a natural part of your speech. And I believe that if you understand and master these 15 words, you will see your English transform completely. You'll find yourself able to express your thoughts clearly, confidently, and fluently. Let's get started right away. In the next section, I will explain why these words are so important and how they can forever change the way you communicate in English. You know, when I first started learning English, I used to think that the more vocabulary I knew, the better. I spent hours every day memorizing long lists of new words I had never heard anyone use in real life. But the problem was, I was only learning isolated words. I would write each word down on paper, note its meaning, and then try to force it into my memory. I remember feeling so proud of myself for being able to memorize hundreds of words effortlessly. But when it came to using them, I realized I know a lot of words, but I can't speak naturally. One day I happened to watch an interview with Steve Jobs. He was talking about how he built Apple, about the failures and successes throughout his career. He said something that kept me thinking. You can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backwards. I suddenly realized that language is just like connecting the dots. You can know a lot of vocabulary, but if you can't connect them naturally, then they're just scattered dots. I started studying how native speakers converse. Not from textbooks, not from dry English lessons, but from real-life conversations, speeches, interviews, and even movies that I loved. I noticed that some words are used very frequently, not because they're popular, but because they carry emotion, nuance, and even the speaker's attitude. For example, when a friend says to you, "Yesterday was a disaster," you understand that their day wasn't great. But if they say, "Yesterday was a fiasco," that sentence doesn't just convey failure. It emphasizes that it was a serious, chaotic, and utterly disappointing failure. A single word, but it carries an entire story. Or when someone says, "She has charisma." This is not just a compliment about appearance or style. It's a statement that the person has a special charm, an ability to draw people's attention and captivate them. Words like fiasco or charisma are not difficult words, but when you know how to use them, you will see that they can make your conversations so much more vivid and natural. You won't just say, "I'm happy," but instead you could say, "I'm in euphoria," to describe an intense excitement, a feeling of overwhelming joy. You won't just say, "I'm thinking," but instead you could say, "I'm contemplating," to express that you are thinking deeply, carefully considering something. So, why are these words so important? Because if you want to speak English naturally, you need to learn how to express exactly what you want to say. It's not just about the meaning of the word, but also its nuance, emotion, and context. The words I'm about to share with you won't just help you speak English more fluently. They will help you convey your thoughts with precision, sophistication, and emotion. But I don't want you to just learn each word in a dry, boring way. I want you to understand them in real-life contexts, the way native speakers actually use them. And to do that, I will divide these words into small groups, each with its own meaning and nuance. For example, words that express strong emotions, words that signify success and failure, and words used to describe personality or influence. We will explore each group one by one, and I will show you how to apply them to specific situations so you can use them as naturally and effectively as possible. Are you ready? In the next section, I will break down these vocabulary words into clear groups and show you the most effective way to learn them. You know, there was a long period of time when I always felt lost among the hundreds of words I had learned. I used to think that as long as I memorized as many words as possible, they would naturally come to mind when I needed them. But reality wasn't that simple. There was a time when I was sitting in a small coffee shop, chatting with a native-speaking friend. She was talking about a camping trip in the mountains, a journey full of emotions and unforgettable experiences. I remember trying to express my feelings using the words I had learned, but everything was a mess. I said, "It sounds good. No, I mean great. It sounds interesting. Amazing." The more I spoke, the more I felt like a word-searching machine. The words I had learned were not connected at all. After that conversation, I decided I had to change the way I was learning. I realized that learning vocabulary isn't about cramming as many words as possible, but about understanding how they connect with each other. Imagine that vocabulary is like small houses in a large city. If you only remember each house without knowing how to get from one house to another, you'll get lost immediately. But if you know how to organize them into areas, into roads, then everything becomes much clearer and easier to remember. I began dividing my vocabulary into small groups based on their meaning and usage. And the magical thing was, I started remembering words faster, using them more naturally, and most importantly, feeling more confident when speaking with native speakers. Today, I will share with you 3 important groups of vocabulary that I have gathered from real-life conversations, from speeches by successful people, and from the movies and shows I love. Group 1. Emotions and moods. These are words you will use very frequently because they help you express your emotions accurately instead of just using simple words like happy or sad. Examples: rosy. Not only does it mean the color pink, but it also describes a positive, hopeful, and promising situation. Example: the future looks rosy. Euphoria. A feeling of intense happiness as if you are floating on air. Example: she was in euphoria after winning the championship. Enigmatic. Describes something mysterious, puzzling, yet fascinating. Example: he has an enigmatic personality that draws people in. This group of words helps you express your emotions in a more nuanced and diverse way. Group 2. Success and failure. Life is always full of ups and downs, and if you want to speak naturally, you need to know how to describe both success and failure. Examples: fiasco, a severe failure, often accompanied by chaos and unmet expectations. Example: The party was a complete fiasco because of the terrible weather. Inevitable, something that cannot be avoided, something that is bound to happen. Example, change is inevitable in the world of technology. Root. Not only does it mean the root of a plant, but it also refers to the underlying cause of a problem. Example, we need to find the root cause of the problem. Understanding this group of words helps you describe every situation, from positive to negative, more accurately. Group 3. Personality and influence. When you want to describe someone or make an impression in a discussion, these words will be your powerful tools. Examples: charisma, natural charm, the ability to attract and influence others. Example, her charisma made her a natural leader. Contemplate, to think deeply and carefully, to reflect on something with great consideration. Example, he sat by the lake, contemplating his future. Wary, cautious, alert, careful about possible dangers or risks. Example, she was wary of strangers offering help. This group of words helps you describe people, their thinking processes, and how they influence one another. When I started learning this way, I found that everything became much easier to remember and use. No more confusion, no more struggling to find the right words. Organizing vocabulary into small groups is like building little roads in a big city. Step by step, you will gradually explore and conquer that entire city. But learning vocabulary groups is only part of the journey. What's more important is understanding the true meaning of each word, how they are used in specific situations, and how to make them a natural part of your communication. In the next section, I will show you how to gain deeper insight into each word, not only through definitions, but also by seeing them in real-life situations, understanding their different nuances, and even recognizing the common mistakes people often make when using them. Are you ready to go deeper? Let's explore together. I remember very clearly one rainy evening in New York. I was sitting in a small coffee shop, chatting with a friend named Sarah. Sarah was an English-born American, with a soft, natural voice that always made me feel like I had to try so hard to keep up with her. We were talking about the new movie she had just seen. Sarah said the movie was a complete fiasco. I was startled. I knew the word fiasco meant failure, but the way Sarah said it, the tone of her voice, it sounded like everything was much worse than just a normal failure. I asked her, "What do you mean by a fiasco, like just a bad movie?" Sarah laughed. "No, it's worse than that. It's like they tried to make something amazing, but it all went wrong. Everything was chaotic. Nothing made sense. It was a complete disaster." At that moment, I realized that a word like fiasco doesn't simply mean failure. It carries a much stronger emotion, a sense of severe, chaotic, and unexpected failure. And then I understood that just knowing the meaning of a word is not enough to speak English naturally. You need to understand the context, emotion, and nuance of that word. Understanding real context. The first lesson. From that day on, I started learning English in a completely different way. I didn't just learn words individually anymore. I tried to understand how those words were used in real-life situations, in stories, in specific contexts. For example, I used to think the word contemplate simply meant to think about something. But when I heard native speakers use it, I realized that it carries the idea of thinking deeply, carefully considering something before making a decision. Like the time I heard someone say, he sat by the river, contemplating his future. I could feel that it wasn't just ordinary thinking. It was about deep reflection, deliberation, and trying to find the right path in life. From then on, I understood that think is just simple, everyday thinking. Contemplate is a process of deep thought, often involving inner struggle and careful consideration. Different nuances of vocabulary. The second lesson. Another day, I learned another important lesson about how to use vocabulary. I was participating in a discussion about work. An American colleague said to me, "You've got charisma." I knew that charisma meant attractiveness, but I thought it was simply a compliment about appearance or fashion. But it turned out it had a much deeper meaning. When I asked him to explain further, he said, "Charisma isn't just about how you look. It's about the energy you bring, the way you make people feel when you speak. It's something that draws people to you, even when you're just being yourself." That was when I realized that a word never has just one meaning. It carries emotions, nuances, and even the speaker's attitude. Charisma is not just about outward appeal. It's a natural charm, a powerful quality that makes others want to listen to you, to follow you. Avoiding common mistakes. The third lesson. But understanding a word deeply is not just about knowing its nuances. It also helps me avoid common mistakes that many English learners often make. For example, the word rosy. Many people only know it as a color pink, but if you only use it to describe color, you're missing out on a very important meaning. When someone says, "The future looks rosy," they are not talking about something pink. They are describing a future that is promising, positive, and full of potential. If you don't understand that context, you will completely miss the meaning of the sentence. Connecting vocabulary with emotions, the fourth lesson. And the most important thing I learned is this: the way you feel about vocabulary determines how you use it. You need to feel the emotion, attitude, and nuance of each word. It's not just about knowing the meaning. It's about knowing how to convey emotion through every sentence you speak. For example, when you say, "I feel happy," the listener will understand that you are feeling good. But if you say, "I'm in euphoria," the listener will feel the intense excitement, the peak of joy that you are trying to express. Preparing for the next step, I realized that just understanding the meaning of a word is not enough. You need to deeply understand how it's used, how it connects to emotions, and how it fits into real-life contexts. And to help you do that, in the next section, I will show you how to apply these words to real-life situations, from everyday conversations to work discussions and even important presentations. You won't just learn vocabulary. You will live with them, feel them, and use them as a natural part of your communication. Are you ready? Let's explore together. You know, there's one thing I have always believed in throughout my journey of learning English. There's no better way to learn than by using vocabulary in real-life situations. I used to think that just knowing the meaning of a word was enough. But when I started trying to use them in conversations, I realized I was still facing a lot of difficulties. Once I was invited to give a presentation at my company about an important project. It was a chance for me to showcase my English skills in front of my native-speaking colleagues. I prepared thoroughly, memorizing all the advanced vocabulary that I thought would make a strong impression. But when I stepped onto the stage, things didn't go as planned. When talking about the success of the project, I used the words good and great repeatedly. I felt like a machine, just repeating the same boring words over and over. When describing the challenges my team faced, I kept using the word problem too much, without finding a stronger, more precise word to express my thoughts. In the end, I finished the presentation feeling disappointed. Not because my project wasn't good, but because my delivery was too monotonous, lacking emotion, and lacking sophistication. After the presentation, an American colleague came up to me and said, "You did well, but you should try using more precise words. It will help you sound more natural and confident." That comment completely changed the way I learned vocabulary. Group 1. Emotions and moods. Making your story come alive. After a while, I started applying new vocabulary to real-life situations, especially when it came to expressing emotions and moods. For example, instead of just saying I was happy after getting the job, I learned to say I was in euphoria after getting the job. The word euphoria conveys a much stronger feeling. It's not just ordinary happiness, but a peak of joy, as if you are floating on air. Or instead of saying, "I feel positive about the future," I could say, "The future looks rosy." The word rosy doesn't just mean positive. It also evokes the image of something beautiful, full of promise, like a picture painted with shades of pink. These words didn't just help me express my emotions more accurately, but also made my stories feel more vivid and alive. Group 2. Success and failure. Choosing the right words for every situation. But not every story is filled with positive emotions. Sometimes you need to talk about failures, challenges, or things that didn't go as planned. And if you choose the wrong words, you won't be able to fully convey your feelings. Once I was involved in a project where nothing went smoothly. After many days of hard work, the final result was still not what I wanted. Instead of just saying, "The project was a failure," I learned to express it like this: "The project was a complete fiasco." The word fiasco doesn't just mean failure. It also conveys a sense of chaos, utter disappointment, and everything collapsing despite your best efforts. And when I wanted to say that all efforts were in vain, I didn't just say it was useless. I learned to say all efforts were futile. The word futile doesn't just mean useless. It also carries a sense of helplessness, a feeling that no matter how hard you try, nothing can change the outcome. Group 3. Personality and influence. Making a strong impression. One thing I learned from working in an international environment is this: the way you describe people greatly influences how they perceive you. I remember once when I wanted to compliment a colleague who had performed exceptionally well during a presentation. Instead of just saying, "She is a good speaker," I said, "She has charisma." The word charisma brings a completely different feeling. It doesn't just refer to speaking skills. It implies that the person has a natural charm, a special ability to captivate and influence others. Or when I wanted to describe someone deeply thinking about an important decision, I didn't just say, "He is thinking." Instead, I said, "He is contemplating." The word contemplate conveys a much deeper feeling, a process of slow, careful, and thorough consideration before making a decision. Connecting words to your story. I realize that when you bring these vocabulary words into specific situations in your life, they become more vivid and meaningful than ever. These words aren't just lifeless characters. They carry emotions, images, and even your own personal stories. And you know what the best part is? When you learn vocabulary this way, you will never forget them, because they don't just exist in your memory. They become part of your own stories and personal experiences. But to truly use these words naturally, you need to practice, and not just practicing by memorization, but practicing through conversations and practical exercises that I will show you right now. Let's explore together. I want to tell you about a discussion I participated in not long ago. It was a meeting between the members of an international project I was involved in. We were asked to share our opinions about a new marketing strategy. Everyone was sharing their perspectives, and I felt quite confident because I had prepared thoroughly. When it was my turn to speak, I wanted to say that the plan seemed very promising, and the word rosy that I had recently learned immediately came to mind. I had read somewhere that this word meant positive and full of potential. So I said the marketing plan is very rosy. Immediately, I noticed the surprised looks from some of my colleagues. Some even smiled. At that moment, I didn't understand what I had done wrong. But after the meeting, an American friend explained to me, rosy is not a word that can be used independently to describe a plan. It is usually used in phrases or sentences with a clearer context, such as, the future looks rosy. They painted a rosy picture of the company's future. What I learned from that situation is, a word can have a positive meaning, but if you don't use it in the right context, it will make your sentence sound awkward and unnatural. Mistake number 1, using words without understanding their true context. One of the most common mistakes I see people make is using vocabulary literally without truly understanding the proper context. For example, when you want to describe a situation that was a complete failure, you can use the word fiasco. But if you say, the meeting was a fiasco in an overly formal or serious context, the listener may feel that you are exaggerating too much. The word fiasco carries strong emotions, a sense of chaotic and disappointing failure. It works better when you are telling a story to friends or in situations where you want to emphasize the disorder. Example of correct usage. The party turned into a fiasco when the power went out and everything fell apart. The business presentation was a fiasco. In a formal meeting, it's better to use words like failure or unsuccessful. Mistake number 2, not understanding the nuance and emotion of vocabulary. There was a time when I wanted to compliment a friend, saying she had a special ability to attract people around her, and I said, "You are very charismatic." It sounds correct, doesn't it? But what I didn't realize was that the word charismatic is often used to describe people who have great influence, usually leaders, speakers, or famous figures. Examples. Steve Jobs was a charismatic leader. Her charismatic speech captivated the entire audience. When I used that word to compliment my friend, she seemed confused, because she was simply an outgoing, friendly person, not someone with the ability to captivate a crowd or lead others. The lesson I learned from this is, understanding the nuance and emotion behind vocabulary helps you use them more accurately and makes a stronger impression on the listener. Mistake number 3, using words that are too strong or too weak for the situation. Have you ever felt like you were saying something very important, but the listener didn't react as you expected? I found myself in that situation when I wanted to talk about a new idea that I believed would bring great success. Instead of saying, "This idea has the potential to be a major success," I only said, "This idea is good." Words like good or great may sound fine, but they are too general and lack the necessary strength to convey your true emotions. Similarly, if you want to say that a project failed severely, but you only use words like bad or failed, the listener won't understand the true extent of the situation. Examples. Instead of saying, "The project was bad," say, "The project was a fiasco if it truly ended in disaster." Instead of saying, "He is a good leader," he has charisma. if you want to emphasize the person's natural charm and ability to attract others. Lessons learned and how to avoid mistakes. I realized that to avoid these mistakes, you need to 1. Understand the proper context for using vocabulary. 2. Feel the nuance, emotion, and deeper meaning that the vocabulary carries. 3. Practice using vocabulary in different situations to understand when to use strong words and when to use softer ones. And most importantly, you need to practice regularly, not just by learning vocabulary, but by using them in real communication situations. In the next section, I will guide you through practicing these words through specific exercises. You will not only listen and understand, but also apply them immediately. Let's get started. I remember very clearly how I felt when I first started practicing the new vocabulary I had learned. At first, everything was difficult. Words like fiasco, charisma, rosy, they felt like they were playing hide and seek in my mind. I knew their meanings. I understood the contexts in which they were used. But when it came time to speak, everything just became a mess. One day, I shared this struggle with Sarah, the American friend I told you about earlier. Sarah smiled and told me, "You just need to practice the way native speakers do. You don't have to memorize each word mechanically. Just put yourself into real situations and use them. Gradually, they will become a natural part of your language." Her words made me think a lot, and I began practicing the way Sarah advised. I didn't just learn vocabulary, I used them in specific situations, practiced continuously, and made them a natural part of my storytelling. And today, I'm going to share with you some incredibly effective practice exercises that I've successfully applied. Examples 1. Fiasco or context. You're telling your friend about a party you attended. Sentence: the party was a complete fiasco. The DJ didn't show up, the food was cold, and half of the guests left early. 2. Charisma or context. You're describing a speaker you admire. Sentence: her charisma was undeniable. From the moment she walked on stage, everyone was captivated by her words. 3. Rosy or context. You're talking about the promising future of a project. Sentence: the future looks rosy. We've received positive feedback from investors and clients alike. Now, create sentences for each of the 15 words you've learned. And don't be shy. Speak them out loud, imagining that you're talking to a close friend or presenting in front of an audience. Exercise 2. Storytelling. Using new vocabulary. Sarah taught me a very interesting way to practice. She calls it the storytelling exercise. I want you to do something simple. Create a short story using at least 5 of the words you've just learned. For example, I told this story to Sarah. Last weekend, I attended a business presentation that was supposed to be amazing, but it turned into a complete fiasco. The presenter lacked charisma, his points were poorly structured, and the audience quickly lost interest. Despite his efforts, everything seemed futile. But looking back, I realized that this failure was inevitable because he hadn't prepared well. It was a valuable lesson for me. Just by telling a short story, I successfully used 5 words: fiasco, charisma, futile, inevitable, lesson. This method not only helps me remember words faster, but also helps me understand how to connect words together in a specific context. Now, try creating your own story. It could be about a wonderful day you just experienced, or a time you faced failure but learned something valuable. Exercise 3. Role-playing. This is one of the most effective methods I've ever applied. You don't need to wait for someone to talk with. You can create a conversation right in your own mind. Examples: you are giving a presentation in front of a group of investors and want to describe the promise of a new project. Ladies and gentlemen, the future of this project looks incredibly rosy. We've identified the root of previous failures and turned them into valuable lessons. With the charisma of our team and the innovative approach we've taken, I am confident that success is inevitable. Or you can play the role of two people debating an issue. A. The plan was a fiasco. Nothing went as expected. B. Perhaps, but sometimes failures are inevitable. We just need to learn from them and improve. This exercise helps me not only learn how to use vocabulary, but also how to interact and respond quickly during a conversation. Exercise 4. Real-life challenge. Use these words in your daily life. Finally, and most importantly, try applying these vocabulary words to real-life situations in your daily life. Examples: when talking with friends about a movie you just watched, try using the word fiasco if the movie was truly terrible. When talking about someone you admire, use the word charisma to describe their special charm. You've done a great job. Now you understand how to use vocabulary in real-life situations. But to truly master them, you need to learn how to combine everything you've learned. In the next section, I will show you how to weave these words into real stories, natural conversations, and how to make them a part of your everyday life. Let's continue together. I want to tell you a story that completely changed the way I learned English and made complicated vocabulary feel familiar and natural. I used to be a very diligent English learner. I wrote down hundreds of vocabulary words, repeating them like a machine. But when it came to real conversations, everything became tangled. The words I had learned kept circling in my mind but refused to appear at the right moment. But then one day, I understood something. That day, I was invited to attend a special seminar in New York. It was a major event with many famous speakers from all over the world. I walked into the seminar room with a bit of nervousness, but also full of excitement. I knew this was a fantastic opportunity to improve my communication skills. The first speaker was a young entrepreneur, renowned for her excellent leadership skills. She began her presentation naturally, as if she was just talking to a group of close friends. But what impressed me most was the way she used words. She didn't say, "I'm happy with the results." Instead, she said, "The results have been euphoric. The team's hard work has paid off beyond our expectations." She didn't say, "The project was bad." Instead, she said, "The project was a complete fiasco. Nothing went as planned, but we learned valuable lessons from it." Every word she used carried emotion and a clear image, and that's what made her story so much more vivid and engaging. When the seminar ended, I sat alone in a nearby coffee shop, thinking about what I had just heard. I realized that vocabulary isn't just dry letters on paper. They are powerful tools that help you convey emotions, ideas, and your stories in the most authentic way possible. After that day, I decided to completely change the way I learned vocabulary. I no longer just wrote down the meanings of words and tried to memorize them mechanically. Instead, I learned how to feel the words, how to incorporate them into my own stories. For example, when I wanted to talk about an amazing experience I just had, I didn't just say I was happy. I said I was in euphoria after achieving my goal. And when I wanted to talk about a failed project, I didn't just say it was a failure. I said, the project turned into a fiasco, but from that chaos, we learned valuable lessons that helped us grow. Words like rosy, charisma, contemplate, were no longer complicated words I had to force myself to remember. They became a natural part of my stories, of the way I talked about the world around me. As time went by, I gradually realized that using vocabulary correctly not only made my English more fluent, but also helped me feel much more confident when communicating. I no longer felt anxious about speaking with native speakers. I no longer feared that I would use the wrong word or fail to express my ideas completely. The vocabulary that once felt challenging now became familiar companions. And the best part is, I wasn't just speaking English more naturally. I was also feeling the freedom to express my thoughts and emotions. But you know what? This journey never stops. I keep learning new words, incorporating them into my stories, and discovering new nuances of English that I had never known before. I want you to have that amazing experience too. In the next section, I will show you how to make these vocabulary words a natural part of your daily life, how to apply them in specific situations, and how to become a confident and engaging communicator. Are you ready? Let's continue together. You know, when I look back on my journey of learning English, I realize something important. All progress starts from the small steps you take every day. I used to struggle with hundreds of vocabulary words, trying to memorize as many as possible, but I couldn't use them naturally. I used to feel frustrated, wondering if I would ever speak English fluently like a native speaker. But then, when I changed my learning method, when I started incorporating those words into my own stories, using them in real-life situations, everything gradually became easier. Not immediately, but little by little. I felt myself becoming more confident. Words like fiasco, charisma, rosy were no longer complicated words that were hard to remember. They became familiar companions in the way I communicated. I want you to remember one thing. Learning vocabulary is not a speed race. It is a journey that requires patience and consistent practice. Now, you have 15 powerful words that, if you know how to use them, will help you speak English more naturally and confidently. But to achieve that, you need to practice and make them a part of your own story. For example, if you want to use the word charisma, don't just learn its meaning. Think about a friend or a famous person you admire, someone with a special charm. Write about them, or tell someone, "I admire her charisma, the way she speaks, the way she connects with people. It's something truly captivating." Or when you think about a project that didn't go as planned, instead of just saying, "It failed," try to express it more honestly. The project turned into a fiasco. But from that chaos, we learned valuable lessons that helped us grow. I want you to practice right away. This is a simple but highly effective exercise. Your exercise: 1. Choose 5 words from the 15 words that you find most interesting. 2. Write a short story or a dialogue using all 5 words. 3. Leave your story in the comments below. I will read all of your stories, and if needed, I will help you edit and improve them to make your story sound more natural. But the most important thing is, keep practicing. Use these words frequently, and don't be afraid of making mistakes. You've come a long way in this video. You haven't just learned 15 new vocabulary words, but you've also learned how to apply them to real-life situations. Avoid common mistakes and create your own emotion-filled stories. But this is just the beginning. Imagine if you learn new vocabulary every day, apply them to your own stories, and share them with others. How much progress you will make in your English journey. I want you to remember, learning English is a journey, not a destination. And you are not traveling alone. I will always be here to help you. Tell me your story. Show me how much you are improving. And if you find this video helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with your friends. We will learn together, progress together, and make English a natural part of our lives. Are you ready? Let's start today. You know what? As I sit here and share with you my journey of learning English, I'm not just trying to pass on knowledge. I want us to become companions on this long and challenging journey. Learning English is not something that happens overnight. It requires patience, effort, and continuous improvement. But the most wonderful thing is, every effort you put in will be rewarded. Looking back at what you have learned in this video, do you realize you have just completed a very long journey? You have learned 15 important words, not only understanding their meanings, but also deeply understanding how to use them in real-life situations. You have learned how to avoid common mistakes, how to recognize the nuances and emotions behind each word. You have practiced through real-life exercises, from creating sentences, storytelling, to creating lively conversations. And most importantly, you have overcome the fear of using new vocabulary, dared to make mistakes, and learned from them. But your journey doesn't end here. In fact, it's only just beginning. I want you to keep applying what you have learned, not only through the exercises I have shared, but also in your daily life. Use these new words when talking with friends, writing your diary, or even when you're just talking to yourself. Remember, language is a part of life, and the best way to learn it is to make it a natural part of everything you do. I know you've done a great job learning vocabulary through this video, but I want to help you go even further. In the next video, I will show you how to make these vocabulary words a natural part of your daily conversations. We will learn how to use vocabulary to give presentations confidently and professionally. Apply complex words in casual conversations without feeling awkward. Incorporate vocabulary skillfully to make your speech sound more natural and smooth. And most importantly, I will share with you an extremely effective practice method that I have used to turn difficult words into something as familiar as the words you use every day. You will participate in simulated conversations with me and other friends. You will see that using complex vocabulary is not as difficult as you think. And if you're wondering, can I speak English as naturally as a native speaker? My answer is absolutely. Before ending this video, I want to thank you for being here, for listening, and for learning with me. Your journey is amazing, and I am very proud to be your companion. If you find this video helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with those who might need it. And don't forget to leave your story in the comments. I'm really looking forward to reading what you share. See you in the next video, and remember, every small step leads to great success. You can do it. I believe in you. Have a wonderful day.